What's going on, people? We are Tottenham TV, back here once again. And I tell you what, like I keep saying, there's never a dull day in Tottenham. Never a dull day. It's either in, out, shake it all about. And today is absolutely no different. Bloody hell.
Another day, another sacking.
Yeah, it's crazy what is going on. As Alistair Gold has revealed, there's been a backroom shake-up in the wake of Igor Tudor's announcement as the new interim Spurs boss. So, in terms of the exits, Joe Newton, who arrived from Brentford, he's gone now. Chris Howsam, who joined from Brentford, he's gone now. Justin Cochrane, who's joined from Brentford, he's gone now. And as well as Johnny Heitinger, who joined the club 33 days ago as assistant manager, he has also been sacked from the backroom staff at Tottenham Hotspur, which leaves Ivan Djurcic and Ricardo Ragagnici, and also Tomislav Vrogic, who's coming as goalkeeper coach, which is very interesting because Fabian Otte has also kept his job in terms of, because he was brought in as a goalkeeping coach, and Andreas Jorgensen, the set-piece coach, has kept his job at Tottenham. So it looks as though that everyone that has come from Brentford have lost their job. Yeah. But Fabian Otte and Jorgensen, who didn't come from Brentford, have both kept their jobs.
You'll know definitely Joe Newton from that famous picture with Thomas Frank holding the Arsenal Cup, and he's looking at the cup and he's got his eyes wide open, like in shock, like what the hell is he doing? So maybe that cost him his job, not telling Thomas Frank he's holding an Arsenal Cup. But he's done a few videos, I think, earlier this year. I think he did one with Ben Haynes earlier for Spurs Play about his job as an analyst. And you know what? I was watching that video and there was a few things, you know, that kind of... There was a few red flags with that video because he was kind of talking about... he was asked, you know, you do all this analysis, like, how do you like know what's relevant and what's not? And he was like, I don't really know. I just kind of give them the information and they kind of decide. I was like, okay, that's fantastic, isn't it? Anyway, so he's out the door. Cochrane, there was a big hullabaloo, wasn't there, at the start of Frank's tenure? We were trying to get him before Frank was appointed. Some even suggesting Frank wouldn't come without him or something to that effect. Cochrane was obviously potentially in the running for the full-time Brentford job, wasn't he? He was mooted for that. So he was seen as a big coup to get him in. He's obviously coach at England as well. So I don't know how I feel about losing him. Obviously, whatever has happened during his tenure hasn't worked, and if he's kind of been advising Frank, and if he's kind of Frank's run things by him, he hasn't done his job of advising him in the right way, because our football has been dreadful and he hasn't been able to help that. But when it comes to Johnny Heitinger, 33 days as assistant coach, is that the shortest tenure as assistant coach in history? Yeah. Must be up there for the shortest tenure in Premier League history. But I think what we can learn from the fact that he's left as well is this pretty much confirms this confirms the story that Paul O'Keefe said a few days ago about Vinay and about the Lewis family stepping in and having Vinay and Lange sack Frank, and that they wanted Frank to stay and they hadn't even considered sacking him, and they were very much on the side of we need to keep him, because you wouldn't hire an assistant manager who's clearly tied to Thomas Frank. That's evidenced by the fact he's left now. So he is tied to Frank. So the fact that they hired him 33 days ago, that was a few days before the West Ham game. That tells me that before the West Ham game, they had no thoughts about sacking Thomas Frank, and he wasn't in any danger. And for me, that is absolutely nuts, and it just goes to their incompetence, that there was no forward thinking and there was no proactive thinking about this actually might not work and he's not the right guy. The fact they hired him and now they ended up firing him 33 days later is evidence of that. So it's crazy to me that we've left ourselves in this situation, and the incompetence, I think, from Vinay and Lange is there for all to see. They need to be next on the chopping block. Let's hope we hear that sooner rather than later. I reckon we'll probably hear it at the end of the season. I think they probably see out the season, and then we hear at the end of the season they're gone. But I think they're dead men walking for me, and I think this is more evidence of it.
I really hope so. I mean, it definitely goes to show that they just kept backing him until, you know, other people stepped on their toes. So yeah, I completely agree with that. But yeah, it's just really interesting, isn't it? Because like there are all these conspiracy theories around Johnny Heitinger saying he's been brought in to maybe take that interim role. He's been brought in to maybe review of an Arnie Slot coming in the summer. Well, obviously that was all just absolute gobbledygook.
I think Tottenham fans look at these things and think there's like 4D chess being played, right? And they think he's coming in for Slot and like he's coming in because Frank's on his way out and we're going to get an interim. Where we didn't expect the incompetence of this hierarchy. So we expect the fans are more.
We should have though.
Yeah, I know.
We should. Why do we not expect it every year?
I'm just saying we were more proactive than the. Than the hierarchy in this sense. It's almost like, I don't know if you've seen like I can kind of compare it to like Game of Thrones and Stranger Things. Hear me out here, let me land. There's like all these plot holes that come out in the final seasons of these shows, and people kind of explain them away because they think, oh, the writers are thinking this or thinking that, and they're coming up with all these theories why this plot hole existed, for why the writers put it in. They can explain it in all certain ways, but actually the writers are just incompetent and they overlook these things. And that's exactly the same with Tottenham. Heitinger comes in, he's coming in for Slot, he's coming in for all these different things, but actually they're just incompetent. And actually they did just give Frank an assistant manager, even though they should have seen he was on the brink of sacking, and that we shouldn't be hiring more people for this manager because with another loss or in the very near future he could be gone. And yet the V9 Lange didn't think that far ahead, unbelievably. And everyone could see that Frank wasn't going to last this season, or was very likely he wouldn't. And especially, the funny thing is, Heitinger should have really been gone after one game because now it kind of makes sense that he even got another month, because that one game West Ham, everyone was saying, okay, he has to go. But they were thinking, we've just hired Heitinger literally one game ago. What an awful look it would be to lose an assistant manager after one game. So they kind of gave it a few extra games, it looks like, but then it kind of became very clear, untenable. It can't work. He has to go, and Heitinger's gone with him, and it's absolute mess.
He was apparently first. Well, the rumours were that he was first on the list to beat the interim. So maybe if they didn't give him the interim, they had to let him go. But yeah, I think it's just madness, absolute madness. But the thing is about Justin Cochrane, obviously we were excited, like you mentioned, about bringing him in, but get these gooners out the door, man. Seriously, like that's one of a domino that needs to fall, as long as with Vinay and Johan Lang as well. But the less gooner infiltration, the better for me. And look, I was one that was excited for Justin Cochrane, but it just hasn't worked out by any stretch of the imagination. So I think it's right for these guys to leave their post. But one thing I found interesting is now Spurs have two goalkeeping coaches on the backroom staff. Because he's brought one in with Rogic, and we've also got Fabian Otte that has retained his job as well. So what can you learn from that? Unless they think that this guy's just brought in as a short-term option from now to the end of the season, and Fabian Otte is going to stay on with whoever the new coach is and the new manager is.
Yeah, that's the kind of what I feel. I feel this Rogic guy, he's obviously been following Tudor around in some of his previous jobs. And we know that Tudor is unlikely to see out the season. So Fabian Otte, hopefully, is going to be our long-term goalkeeping coach. I don't know, was he brought in with Frank? He was, wasn't he?
Yeah.
But he is a goalkeeping coach, so necessarily it could translate to future jobs. I think when it comes to an assistant, they're very closely tied to the first team manager and the analysts as well. I guess you could have kept Joe Newton on if you thought he was doing a good job, but clearly they just didn't feel like he was. Maybe they felt Otte is doing a fine job, although Vicario hasn't exactly improved, has he, this season? You can very strongly argue he's gotten worse since last season. So whether they feel like he's a long term, we know with Rogic, he's probably going to be leaving at the end of the season because he's a short term fix. So they probably thinking, do we want to go for another goalkeeping coach in the summer, or we can just keep on Otte? So that's probably it.
Also, another point worth noting is that if it is going to be Poch that comes in, Tony Jimenez is always his goalkeeping coach. So maybe.
Yeah, that's also a good point.
So yeah, I'm not really sure what to make out of that, unless they're just keeping Fabian Otte on until the summer, just to doubly make sure, like, who's going to be on that, who's going to be the manager, what kind of staff is he going to bring in, and can he make do with someone like Fabian Otte? Because he's got a good history behind him with his days at Liverpool.
Yeah, he does. So, yeah, look, I don't know exactly what the thinking is. It's great that Jorgensen, though, is staying on.
That's the big one for me. Yeah.
Everyone was saying he's the one doing his job. Our set pieces have actually been very good, so that's one thing Frank and the coaching staff can take credit for. We actually have been very good at set pieces, albeit we rely on them too much, but that's by the by. So hopefully if we can actually be good when the game is playing, and apart from just when there's a set piece, maybe we can actually be a decent team.
Yeah, absolutely. But these guys that he's brought in, this is like his trusted guys that were with him at Juventus last season. Lazio as well. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how this all kind of plays out on the pitch. We need to see something better, and I think it's time for the fans just. Even if you don't think this guy, if it's a good appointment, but we just need to get behind it, don't we? Because we need to show support for the team to get through this difficult period.
I think the fans will. I think the fans always do, in general. I understand there's a kind of narrative around Tottenham fans. They're toxic, they're easy, they're hard to please, they're deluded in terms of what they expect too much and all this kind of stuff. I don't buy it. I really don't buy it. I think the Tottenham fans expect Spurs to be where they should be, which is, given our revenues, we should be in those top 6 conversations, obviously hoping for Champions League. We should be in that Champions League conversation at the very least, but we're hoping to be Champions League regulars, in the long term for sure. I don't see why not with the revenues that we generate. We've got the money, we've got the infrastructure. There's no reason why Tottenham shouldn't be competing for those Champions League places year in, year out. All I think they expect is when we're on the pitch, we have a team that try and win games, try and stamp themselves on the game, not just sit there and defend all the time, not just play long ball. Have a plan to attack teams, take the game to the opposition, and have a game of it. If we lose, we go down trying, not waiting to die, which is your favourite phrase. We always go and not expect to win, but give it a go and throw caution to win and risk and have a panache about the way we play. We're not expecting ourselves to be prime Barcelona every single week, but we expect to watch a team try to play football, try to excite, and try to throw caution to the wind, and not a team that's scared to play and try, as Danny Blanchfleur say, win by boring the opposition to death. That is not what we expect from our football team. And when we see that, we're going to complain and we're going to let our voices be known. So I don't like that. I think the Spurs fans, as long as there's a team out there trying and going for it, even in these little periods in the last few weeks, yes, it's been toxic. Yes, there's been booing, but whenever we've seen the team, those little spurts, go for the opposition and put the game on them, all of a sudden the crowd have picked up a bit, haven't they? And they've got behind the team. We don't expect a lot. We don't need a lot to get behind the team. We are dying to have a team we can get behind. But at the end of the day, when we're being served what we've been served over the last few, especially last couple of years at home, there's going to be toxicity. And I think in most clubs in our position, the fans would be the same. So this narrative about Tottenham fans is rubbish. So for me, they will get behind Tudor, especially in the early weeks, if we're seeing what I'm saying we want to see. And yeah, we might lose games, but I think we will get behind the manager.
If Tudor gets the result against Arsenal, he's got more credit in the bank than Frank ever had, probably. literally.
He's probably done a better job already. If he can get a draw, I think people will all of a sudden be on him. So look, we all know that Tudor has a lot. Needs to do a lot if he's going to get this permanent job. No one's expecting him to be here beyond this summer. So it's all about this mini period. Could he leave a cult hero, having saved us relegation, maybe a couple of big wins in there against some good teams, and maybe even a Champions League run, who knows? Well, no one's expecting him to come in here and perform miracles. He just needs to do enough to keep us up. Yeah,
I've been hearing a narrative about Igor Tudor's contract, because it is obviously till June, no option or any sort of thing to suggest that it can extend. So they're saying, what incentive does he have to actually come in and do well for Spurs? But I'm so sure, first of all, he's not going to want to be the guy to take Tottenham down. That's first and foremost for his career. And second of all, I'm pretty sure there's got to be some sort of incentivized bonuses for Igor Tudor in his contract. You know what I mean? So I think there's enough incentive there for him to want to come in and do a good job at Tottenham.
100%. And not just that as well. I'm sure there's great incentives, but we've seen you come into the Premier League even for a short amount of time and you can get other jobs off the back of it. You can get Premier League jobs or bigger jobs. I know he's had big jobs in the past, but obviously clearly there are doubts about him or he seems to blow up after a certain amount of time or fall out with the hierarchy. But if he comes in and does a good job at Tottenham, people will definitely look at that. You even look at Sherwood. He got a full-time job off the back of his interim spell at Spurs. Yeah. And even though we didn't even particularly like him at Tottenham, he got the Villa job off the back of it. Obviously, he didn't do too well there. I'm just saying,
But you got the job, yeah.
But you got the job. Van Nistelrooy got a job after off the back of 4 games at Man United manager. He got a job. So there's very much enough incentive for all these managers who come in, even if it's an interim, to do well.
Yeah, exactly. Putting himself in the shop window, that's for sure.
Someone says, has Tudor got a song? Well, apparently, we've Spurs song sheet have already created a song for Igor Tudor, Oasis. He's Croatian. He's on a 3-month vacation. He's saving us from relegation. Igor Tudor.
Brilliant.
There we go.
That is brilliant.
There we go.
Look, I'm delighted that Jorgensen's staying, because when Frank got sacked, that was the one thing I said. This guy has got to stay, because he has been doing a phenomenal job for Tottenham Hotspur. We are the most dangerous team from corners in the Premier League this season. So if anyone was doing a good job, it was him. But look, this is the backroom shake-up. Heitinger gone, Cochrane gone, Howsam gone, Joe Newton gone, Otte stays, Jorgensen stays, and 3 guys have come in for Igor Tudor as well in his backroom staff. So, yep, first game, North London derby. It don't get any bigger than that. So if we can get a result in that game, then look, if we beat Arsenal this weekend, look, I know it's fanciful thinking, but if we actually go and beat Arsenal this weekend, that is like half the job done in terms of saving us from relegation.
Absolutely, literally, you only need like 3 or 4 wins at the very most. So I think it sets us on the great foot. And as well, and I don't want to put too many deluded thoughts in my mind, but if we do beat Arsenal, all of a sudden, what confidence that would give that team in the Champions League, because you've beaten probably the best team in Europe, if we're being honest, and all of a sudden, there's after winning the Europa League last season, that we have that experience of getting through tournaments, and that will give this team a massive boost.
It's written in the stars that we play Juventus in the next round, isn't
guaranteed.
it? It's absolutely written in the stars. Book your tickets,
book your flights to Turin. It's happening, guaranteed.
All right, so that is the news on that.